The Beginner's Guide to VA Home Loans. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jeff Trevarthen, Jeff the Mortgage Pro. Thanks so much for watching my video today. Today we're talking about the Beginner's Guide to VA Home Loans. But first, if you like this video, I would love for you to click that like button down below. That helps get my message out to as many people out here on YouTube as I can. And then if you really enjoy the content that I'm putting out on my channels, if you watch some of my other videos, if you could please click the subscribe button, hit that little bell next to it. That'll give you all the notifications of when I put out a different video. Usually it's every Tuesday and Thursday for the most part, but that helps me out a lot. Okay, so let's talk about VA loans. You guys know that this is, if you've watched any of my videos before, this is my favorite type of loan to do. This is the way that I can give back to the community of veterans who have served our country across the United States. I was not a service member. I had my parents or my dad was a service member. Lots of people in my family have been service members, and this is my way to give back to veterans. So I love doing these loans, number one. And you know, it's just a really good loan to do, and that's my way to help people out. So I love doing loans for veterans, okay? So here's what we're gonna do when we get a loan for you. We're gonna definitely look at some different options. I always wanna make sure that we compare whether a VA loan is the right option for you. 99% of the time when we do comparisons between a VA loan, a conventional loan, or a VA loan and an FHA loan, or all three of those loans for the matter of fact, 99% of the time the VA loan is going to be the best option for the veteran, okay? So, but I want to make sure that you always understand your different options or what are the different things that are out there. So just understand that if you get a chance to work with me, we are going to make sure that we look at some different options for you going forward, okay? All right, here's what we need to do when we are getting ready to do a VA loan purchase. We're going to need to get some paperwork together first. And there's two forms that we need from you for veterans specifically. Okay, the first form is what's called your certificate of eligibility. So whether you work currently in the military or you've been discharged from the military, you should always have a certificate of eligibility. And this determines how much of a VA loan benefit you have. So we can figure out how much of a VA loan you actually can get, number one, and number two, how much down payment you might need to put down on a VA loan. Now, for the most part, if you have never used your eligibility, you can get as much as you can, a VA loan as you can qualify for. But if you've used your eligibility before, there's different calculations that we need to do to figure out how much you need to use for a down payment. Sometimes you don't need a down payment, sometimes you do. But certificate of eligibility is that form that tells us that type of information. So if you don't have one of these or you don't know where to find it, we can usually pull those for you. So you don't even really have to worry about it at the end of the day. But you can also get it from va.gov or go to your local Veterans Affairs office if you need to find that certificate of eligibility or you lost it, okay? The second form you need is if you are discharged from the military, not people that are currently in the military, but if you're discharged, you need what's called a DD214. That's a Form DD214, so Defense Department Form 214, okay? And what this does is it tells us your status as a veteran, whether you're honorably or dishonorably discharged, and whether or not you are eligible for a VA loan. This form will help us determine your eligibility for that form. So if you're a veteran, you need the certificate of eligibility and the Form DD214. And again, if you don't know where that DD214 is or you lost it somewhere, you can always go to your local VA office or you can get it online at va.gov. I'm pretty sure you can order a copy from either of those two places, okay? So those are the forms you need for veteran-specific types of products. You also need some other things in terms of your qualifying for a loan. So basic paperwork usually includes your last 2 months worth of pay stubs, your last 2 W-2s, and your 2 months worth of asset statements showing your cash to close. So, you know, a lot of veterans, they don't have to put a down payment on this. So that's one of the great things about a VA loan. You can do 100% financing. Sometimes you do. So we need to verify that if you have that money available for you, and then also your cash to close. There's going to be some closing costs associated with any type of a transaction as well, or including a VA transaction. So we want to make sure that you have the amount of money in there. So those are the different things you're going to need. Also, a form of government issued ID, driver's license, a passport, things of those natures are also probably going to need those forms as well. Okay, so that's the basic documentation you're going to need to qualify for a VA loan. Then what we're going to do is we're going to submit a loan application. So a loan application is the same wherever lender you go to. The Uniform Residential Loan Application is what it's called, 1003. You're going to see everybody have the same exact questions on a loan application form. And what we're going to ask about is your income, your assets, your credit, and your liabilities. And those different things are going to help us determine how much of a mortgage loan we're going to qualify for. So remember that documentation we want to set up. All we're doing with the documentation is verifying the information that we're putting on the loan application. That's what it's used for. Back in the financial crisis in 2007, 2008, the pendulum was one way in which you barely had to have any documentation for any loans, and then it swung the other way until we had to fully document every single cent that you had in your account. And it's kind of back in the medium area right now, but that's why we need to have that documentation just to support what we're putting on the loan application at the end of the day. Okay, so submitting your loan application is the second step after you've gathered your initial documentation for your VA loan. Okay. So once we have all that stuff, we're going to send it through our underwriting system, and we are going to have an underwriter take a look at your credit profile and determine how much of a VA loan we can get you. And we're going to try to qualify you for the maximum VA loan that we can get you. What I like to do, and I think other people like to do this too in terms of loan officers, is let's determine what your maximum is, and then we're going to work backwards from there and figure out what fits in your budget. Right? We want to figure out how much of a loan we can qualify first, and then we want to determine, okay, underneath that large number that you might see on there, how much of a loan do you actually want to make a monthly payment on? And that will help us determine where you need to go out and search for a property when we find that price point. Okay. So getting a fully underwritten VA approval is going to take a couple days. So just be patient. We're going to send it through an underwriter, have a look at it. It also depends on how busy a lender is at any particular time. So it could take a couple, 24 hours or 48 hours, but it could also take a week or two, depending on how busy the market is and how many whether the company's overstaffed or understaffed. Lots of different factors in that. So I'll never give you a timeline exactly, but if you do call in and you want to qualify for a VA loan, we'll figure out how much your timeline is going to be. Okay. So once we get that fully underwritten pre-approval and we know how much you can qualify for, and we know where you want to be in terms of monthly payment, now it's time to do the fun part of the loan. So the next step is to go out and actually find a house. So you want to make sure that you're working with a realtor that is going to be veteran friendly, somebody who knows a little bit about VA loans, knows that there's some nuances on how to negotiate contracts, and we want to make sure that they do the best job of representing you. If you need somebody, always feel free to ask. We can find somebody in your local area, in your local state, to help you get the best realtor to represent you for the VA loan. So we do transactions for VA loans all across the country. So we are experts in VA loans. We may not be specific experts in your particular area that you live in. And that's why we want to make sure that the realtor that you're working with is going to help you get that particular property under contract and have everything negotiated appropriately so that we can close the VA loan smoothly going forward. Okay. So once you're out home shopping, have a great time. This is the fun part. This is the part that everybody loves. You get to go see different houses, figure out what you like, what you don't like, and find that property that's going to be the place that you want to live in, whether it be for a short term or for the long term. This is the property you're gonna put money into and you're gonna want to buy and live in. So enjoy this part of the process. It's always a fun part to me. Over the couple of houses that I've bought, and I think that hopefully it'll be a fun part for you too. Okay. So once we're under contract, we're going to have to do a couple things. The lender, for example, is going to have to do an appraisal on a property. And that means that we'll send out a third-party appraiser to go out and determine what the value of that property is. That's how we know how much money we can lend on a VA loan. I would say 8.5 out of 10 or 9 times out of 10, the appraisal comes back at the purchase price. At the end of the day, though, that's a variable. We never know what it's going to come back at. We want to make sure that the property is going to appraise. So have your real estate agent help you do some really good comparable sales to help you determine where's that, are we going to be pretty good on the appraisal? Are we going to buy a property that's undervalued or overvalued? Want to make sure that all those things are lined up. But when we're in contract, we have to do that appraisal to help us determine what the value of the property is. And then in some states, you're going to have to do termite inspections on properties. Most of the southern states, wherever there's moisture, are definitely going to have to do a termite report on those properties. So let's get that stuff ordered and done right away so that we can mitigate any problems early on in the transaction before we get too far along and too deep into the escrow contract. So those are some of the things that we're going to do when we're in the transaction. We're also going to make sure that we submit updated documentation if there's been a lag between when you got pre-approved and when we're actually doing the loan. So we want to make sure all of our paperwork still lines up. You're still eligible for a loan once we get you into contract, and we'll run it through underwriting. So hopefully all this stuff can happen pretty fast. We usually want to try to close within 30 days. Other instances, you maybe need a longer closing or a shorter closing. We can usually accommodate most people's requests on what we're trying to do in terms of the length of the closing time with a VA loan, okay? And then at the very end of the transaction, we're going to make sure everything lines up. We're going to get your full approval. Everything looks good on the property. You are ready to buy that property. You're going to take your money and you're going to put it in escrow to close that transaction. And once everybody's agreed and ready to go, and we've got all of our paperwork signed, your big giant stack of paperwork that you have to sign at the end of the day, when you get your home loan and get your house, and then we're going to wire our money in from the bank, and you are going to have whatever funds you have to close in there, and then that transaction is done, and hopefully it'll record within a day or two, or maybe even the same day, depending on what state you're in, and you're going to get the keys to your new property. So that's the process from start to finish, from documentation all the way through closing. That's the beginner's guide to VA loans. If you like this video, again, please make sure you like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions at all, I'm going to put my calendar link down below, and you can feel free to schedule a call with me. I'd love to chat with you more about VA loans and VA mortgages, and let's get you into your next house. Have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye.